Hey YouTube, Lawler here. We got some important ones to talk about when it comes to the state of Rocket League and primarily Rocket League esports. As you know, that's kind of what we cover here. And I'm here to try to provide a little bit of insight, and we're going to do that with some support from some orgs as well. If you guys didn't see the latest conversation or watch the latest videos, make sure you guys hit subscribe, check those out, or check the roster document because it displays it as well. But BDS has released their roster, primarily actually picked up by Vitality. The Vitality team is now with Monkey Moon, Casio, and Exotic to pair with Zen. But they put out a post both in English and in French, and it talks about, hey, supporters and Rocket League community members, we're pretty heavily invested in the scene, and after careful consideration, we want to adjust our resources and priorities for the game, taking into account the economic realities of Rocket League and the resources allocated by the publisher to the esports scene, which I think many have talked about for years. And it is primarily, what is Epic / Psyonix doing to provide the love and attention to the esports scene. Also, shout outs to Unit in chat. If you guys don't know, one of the goats over for Space Station. Don't worry, Unit, we gave you guys your own video. You have a video that you are the stars of. We talked at length about the snowman situation. Don't worry. When talking about the scene, conversations, and SSG is a part of this as well, with making sure that the expenditures that they're putting in are done in a more intelligent way, which is very difficult when organizations come in, as we've talked about in previous videos, and come in for like a year or two, inflate salaries really, really high, and then they just kind of dip. It makes it really difficult when the markets go up and the players expect more, and it's really frustrating. So, but the reality is organizations have a hard time spending the money that they have been, and it's not sustainable, especially when the organizer on the back end hasn't really provided the communication or instilled the confidence that is needed for people to reinvest. While some changes are good, like the format providing automatic quals and stuff for the top 8, again, that really isn't justifiable to provide security for these teams. And the only ones that are really able to do it have been franchise-based leagues like League of Legends, Overwatch, so on and so forth. Call of Duty obviously is a prime example. Even though Call of Duty, as much people want to use that as an example, and they do have the decals and stuff in game, and they have guaranteed partnerships with Scuff, they had an overinflated valuation of like 22 to 25 million for the franchise spot, which no one even came close to that level of revenue, and they actually had to pay people out at the end of the year to justify it. So you can't tell me that Call of Duty is also in that conversation. So across the board, there's this conversation and kind of the hierarchy of when we talk about esports and wanting to compare it to the success of sports, there is definitely a conflict of interest when it comes to the developers having sole monopolize of the IP. They control all the broadcasting rights, they control revenue structures, they control everything from top to bottom, which it is their title and they have that right. But the complication is, in order to find success, and the ones that probably do it best, in my opinion, like Counter-Strike, are giving the freedom elsewhere, letting other people take their product and run with it. And to instill hopefully a little bit of confidence, it seems like Epic is starting to do that, letting Blast run the ship for the next 4 years. Between marketing and the esport, they are trying to take more of a hands-off approach, and Blast has been successful in other ways of doing that. And as much as people want to dog on them with how this season went, realistically, LAN events and everything else were pretty close, despite a much smaller budget than what EFG or ESL Faceit Group was doing. So there is some refinement going on. Everything definitely seems to be in a kind of a step back, with hopefully ramping up and moving forward. But the problem isn't, I don't think, the esports. Sure, the long breaks are tough. Yes, there's not enough events, and hopefully that changes here shortly. Maybe some information by the time this video comes out about that. But the difficulty is that that's not enough. Just having events to compete in isn't enough. And sure, those events give times for marketing and content and everything else, but there needs to be more proper rev share options for Rocket League in general. BDS also talks about that, about how they're going to basically say thank you to all their people, and hopefully you've had enough long time to read this during the time, but they're going to be splitting their focuses in 2 different ways. One, they want to say, hey, we're going to organize our own tournament. We think that if we are a tournament organizer and we have people coming in and we are now given that marketing opportunity because we're the ones putting together the event, we can do something with this, whether it be self-sponsors on it or otherwise. That could be a potential route for us. But the other side is that they still want to stay and continue to support the esport. They still want to be ambitious about Rocket League, and they have hopefully future projects possible in the future when it comes to an esports team. Like, I would hate to see the team that is one of the winningest organizations in Rocket League over the last open era situation, with winning 2 world championships, going second place at another, to dip out because they can't justify staying. Like, if the team that is winning the most can't stay with it, what chance does anybody else have? And I hope this is wake-up calls and realities, because we've been here before. When I put out that Squishy was leaving Cloud9 and going to Energy, and that 13 organizations signed a petition to talk and discuss that we need better communication and stuff, I thought it was finally going to be organizations banded together, putting their foot down, and we were going to see change. And while some things did get better, a lot of stuff has stayed stagnant or stayed the same, which can be used to summarize Rocket League pretty well. I will say, despite that, I've had a very good opportunity to sit and talk and get to know the new competitive team with Epic. I've discussed a lot of things, and while I can't break NDA and share a lot of the information that has been shown, I can tell based upon the way that things are trending, Epic has this intention to go more Fortnite focus. Fortnite is about to generate, from what it sounds like, about $6 billion in revenue this year, and trying to tap into what works for Fortnite and bring that over to Rocket League is obviously a desire. They want as many people playing the game. They want to get as many signups. Every tournament that they sponsor has to have open qualifiers. And by generating as many people playing this game as possible, they're hopefully that can then trickle into generating revenue. And it sounds like they're open to the ideas of like compendium prize pools and saying, hey, we're going to put out a specific decal that's just for RLCS, which is what they showcased this year for the majors, where, hey, we have a decal that is specifically made just for this. What they don't have tied with that is saying that the proceeds from this go directly back into the esport. It goes to the organizations, it goes to the teams, it goes to the, and creating a very strict, like, I'll be completely candid with you all. I would love the opportunity if Psyonix or Epic came to me and go, hey, Adam, hey, Lawler, we would like you to be this person that is going to communicate, and your sole job is to make sure that these organizations, they feel heard, that you are able to continue to push forward what you think will be profitable reasons for both sides that make sense financially, and just make that your effort. Talk to these organizations, hear what they have to say, build structures that make sense. And it's like, shoot, I would love to do that. I would love to finally go to Psyonix and say, hey guys, we're going to put out a decal. That decal, all proceeds for just that one decal. And I know you guys aren't getting your juicy share out of it, the 70% or whatever the heck it is. But I promise you, if people in this community knew that their money was going directly to supporting this esports scene, and it would support the team so they stick around, it would support the prize pool, it would, maybe we could get a international type Dota 2 $34 million compendium prize pool, and it's done and funded by the people, so it's nothing you guys have to worry about. It's in addition to the efforts you're already doing. Hey, let's do, you know, discounted decal packs for the teams that attend majors so we can drive sales that we normally weren't getting there anyway. Maybe we should make a custom decal with the world champions, because that, whether it's a little bit of time and effort, is enough to drive more revenue. And sure, you take a bit of proceeds for that, but majority of that should be rewarded to the team, because without the team, we don't have anything. Like, there's little things like that that just need to be done that aren't being done that cause for concern. On top of all this, we did see, and shout outs to Corelli for kind of bringing in more conversation on this. He really did a good job of asking qualifying questions to make sure that we got more insight into this. If you guys don't know Alex Gonzalez, he is one of the heads over at Luminosity, a organization I hope desperately comes back into the RLCS next season. But he talks about a lot of the conversations around Rocket League esports sustainability and increased skin decal revenue isn't a needle mover. And I agree. Rev share cannot just be, hey, you have a decal, you can sell the sponsorship option on that decal to make revenue. It just isn't enough. Like, there needs to be a massive overhaul, and I agree. Like, there needs to be better structures put into place. So Corelli being the person, he goes, that's great insight, but like, what are some insights that you can provide? Obviously, you guys are great in other esports, so I feel like your opinion is super important here. But like, what are other things that other organizations do as true examples that you can give us? And he goes, hey, here's some immediate thoughts. More consistent season. Long breaks hurt everybody, and I agree. When you are working in the online space, when you're working in esports particularly, if you are not constantly at the forefront, constantly tweeting, constantly talking, and I say this as a content creator as well, if I'm not constantly putting out content, if I'm not constantly on the timeline, if I'm not constantly living and breathing online, you get left behind. It's just the realities. It's why you see people tweet impression farming. They have to, because it's the only way that they stay relevant and they see their numbers continue to climb. Some of this goes on the organization. Some of these organizations are just straight up lazy. They don't take advantage of the opportunities they have. They don't utilize the money they are spending on their marketing tool, which is their team. Some are better than others, and they could all be in better shape of this. Even OG, upon exiting the scene, said, hey, we could have been better about content. Some of them are great about it, like Gen G's behind the scenes videos. They pair a sponsor to it. Like, there is ways to do it, but that still isn't enough. Energy prints money with the content that they had with Garrett G, Squishy, and Justin at the time. There is ways to do it, but that doesn't diminish the fact that in between majors, we have a long time. Between the major and the World Championship, we had multiple months. And sure, yes, we had Gamers 8/Esports World Cup, but the relevancy, it definitely felt like a diminished product. And for the teams that didn't make it there, what do they have to look forward to? You're talking teams that were done in like April, May for the entire year. Like, they had legitimately an 8-month off season. What are they supposed to do? How are they supposed to pay players? How are they supposed to? And if there's no tournaments for them to play in, like, what are they going to do? On top of that, more opportunities for brand partners live at booths. And we had this. The first time we went to Dickies in 21-22, I think it was, there was booths everywhere. Every corner had a different team. You even saw higher dollar areas for booths for like Furia, where they had like cage and like underground type of vibes in the middle, in the connecting hall. Like, those types of things are really important. Orgs need opportunities for a chance to promote their own brands, to build fan bases, communities around their product. And if you don't give them that opportunity, it's very tough. And sure, there was some boosts at Worlds, but the justifying cost or the expenditure that is there, these should be built in. Orgs, in my opinion, should not have to pay to have a booth at the venue. Sure, they should have to pay to bring in and ship in whatever they want to set up at their booth, but to have to pay for internet, to have to pay for the space, to have to sell their merchandise at market cost so they can't turn a profit, like, all that stuff needs to be found out or figured out and assessed into the product that is, hey, you are signing a team. The other issue I have is there's no clear guidelines. There is nothing out there that is like a strict, like, you need this amount of followers, you need this amount of impressions, you need this amount of, like, what are the stipulations that determine if you get in the decal program or not? Because I don't think they're there. I think it's just a personal preference. It's a gut decision. It's a priority based upon specialty favors. Like, hey, we like you guys. Sure, you guys get in the decal program. But there is no like clear path to this is how you get part of our rev share program. Things like that need to be figured out. They need to be ironed out, because then orgs have something that they can strive towards. They know what they're trying to accomplish. They need to have goals in mind to incentivize them. Talks about flexibility and multiple logos on in-game skins. Sure, things are limited. Sure, decals are problematic. I do think that if they had this program more robust and more thought out, and they had more like harsh cutoff times and stipulations, no ifs, ands, or buts, orgs need to be held accountable. You can't let them limp in last second. And at the other time, if they're not done by deadlines, then too bad. Even if it looks poorly on us, you just need to put those specifics in place. Because sure, the developers need time to make these, but when you overpromise and underdeliver, which is what happened a lot, hey, you guys can finally do a little bit more creativity with design decals. Oh, G2, we got to get rid of the samurai. Oh, hey, this anodized decal isn't anodized anymore. They fall flat, and then that affects the revenue from these organizations that they have set somewhat of an expectation on. Like, if I have this decal that looks sick, that we have made, that we've designed, that we paid Beefy Ramen to make, that looks incredible, but in-game it doesn't look like the renders that we made because you guys don't allow us to use the certain things that we did, it's going to be problematic. The fact that they're limited to doing anodized or not, I don't know if that's a game limitation or otherwise, but so many of these problems create things. And then the biggest thing, and I totally agree, lower salaries and less roster changes. The issue is players have too much control. And I get it. From Epic and Psyonix's perspective, you want to protect the players. So put in some rules for minimum things. You can't do importing players up to, like, you need to have like international import restrictions. You can only have X amount of imports at a time so people stop getting rinsed and replaced. The 2/3 rule is great. It does provide a little bit of job security, but the issue is because 2/3 of the roster, or because these players are 33% of the roster, they have so much control over what happens. And these organizations are fearful of saying, hey, we're going to give you guys the power. Because unfortunately, do I want my decisions of my company, of my organization, of what's happening on the shoulders of a 16-year-old kid who might get a little bit emotionally unstable? Which isn't their fault. They're a kid. They're learning. They're growing. They're developing. How am I supposed to invest when I don't even know if this kid's going to want to get out of bed today because of the pressures and the struggles that he's going through. And like, sure, we try to do our best to support, but legally we can't take that on ourselves. It's like, you want to be invested in this, but they don't have the control to justify being invested. And because of that, rosters change at the flip of a hat. Hey, he said something mean. Hey, I didn't get along. We had an argument. And then it disbands. It's very tough for organizations to really invest long-term and build these narratives and these storylines when every 3 months it's changing. And then 6 months after, it's a completely different team. Like, how do I, as a fan, invest in a team or an organization when the team and the organization is different every single split, every single year? Like, G2 is going to continue to thrive because you have 3 big names sticking together and building together. It's just impossible for them, and they're all overpaying. When the value is not there because of the lack of these things, when the rev share options aren't there, how are they supposed to continue paying $10, $15, $20,000 a month to players? You're talking like a $60,000, $70,000 investment for some of these high-profile teams. And then when the rev share options aren't there and they can't make it back, like, what are they supposed to do? Again, I alluded to this at the beginning. It's inflated. If you guys aren't familiar with the story, when NRG came into Rocket League and they wanted to pick up the team that they did, which was the Kings of Urban guys, which was Jacob, Sad Jr., and Fireburner. I'm pretty sure what it was. Yeah, it was a long time ago. When they brought in Garrett and all these other kind of things, Cloud9 also wanted that roster and offered them double market price. They're like, we're going to come in, we're going to offer these guys $4,000. When Rocket League was purely in its infancy, there was no justification for that type of money. No value was there. Like, it was still building. And NRG, basically being a new organization with financial backing from Jennifer Lopez and Michael Strahan and Shaq, basically said, screw you guys, you got to take us seriously. We're going to double it. So rather than these guys getting paid like the maybe 2 to 3 that they should have been, they got paid 6. And ever since that moment, there is a certain entitlement or a certain justification that players think because their buddies are making that kind of money that they also need to make that money. And that just kept stacking up. And then organizations come in and go, hey, these kids are asking for 12, 15 a month and they're the best and they've got the biggest notoriety. We're going to do it. They come in, they can't sustain it, and then they back out. And the market stays inflated. And the ones suffering are the ones that have been trying to support it for long term. The G2s, the space stations, the people who've been around for a really long time since the beginning, that have their hearts in the right place, that are trying to do things the right way. And again, if I'm a player, like, get a bag, dude. Like, I'm not here to tell players that they don't deserve it. But at the same time, it's really frustrating for an organization to come in and say, hey, guys, content obligations, you need to make content, you need to make videos, you need to do these things, you need to stream, you need to do this on top of competition. And the players go, well, we own the spot, and I don't feel like it. I want to focus on only competing, which is, 3 hours of scrims at tops a day, maybe some replay analysis here and there, and then ranked when they feel like it. And like, as an organization, if you try to enforce it, then they get mad, and then you're left with nothing to show for the money you put in. So like, you kind of just have to adhere to it. Like, what are you supposed to do? Because you don't have control over who stays on the roster, because the player's on the spot, not the organization. And I thought this was maybe going to change when the organizations did that petition years ago and tried to emphasize the problems that were going on. But it continues to be the same. Organization comes in for a year or two, pays an insane amount of money, market value goes up. And by all means, I will say over the last year, this has definitely changed a little bit. Organizations are also at fault. They operate very unintelligently. They do some really stupid things, and that's a generalization. But it is very difficult to find good organizations versus bad. There's only probably a handful that do it right. And the difficulty is it continues to inflate, and you're starting to see some organizations finally be like, hey, instead of base contract, we're going to give you a low salary. If you perform well, then we can justify paying you a little bit more because now you have more marketing capabilities because you're in front of more names, likeness, so on and so forth. Hey, we need to have content obligations. You need to stream at least X amount of time. We will try to make it as easy as possible to get you like a full-time editor. You just have to send us footage. If you don't, we are going to reduce some of your pay because this is time and effort we're going out of. We have to treat you guys like professionals. I know you're young kids and it's a lot to take in, but we have to hold you accountable on these things, because if we don't, we can't stick around. Orgs are finally starting to wise up a little bit. Still a lot that still allow their players to kind of run over them because they are susceptible to what the players want. But finally, some are getting there. So it goes both ways. But let's be perfectly clear that Epic Psyonix needs to find better ways to drive revenue for the brand. Jack goes on and says, hey, say the format goes back to what it was, 3 splits, you know, decal boost, org, stuff like that. Do you think salaries in Rocket League still have to go down? You know, is there enough value in signing a player in Rocket League to just play Rocket League? No. In every esport, that answer is never yes. It's not. Like, to have players just play is insane. Trying to figure out what is the bigger problem. Is the amount of players being paid too high to justify the return, or are there too many restrictions on orgs to get full? Both. I think that's the issue, is it's both. Alex says, hey, there's still too many orgs that are lighting money on fire. Go in for 1 or 2. Yeah, he literally reiterates what I just said. They go in for a year or 2, they light money on fire, drive up the price, and then they go out of business, leaving more established orgs with temporary higher salaries, which kills them. Having a more closed form like LGS that can lean into a set number of teams per year would be successful in his opinion. In-game decal isn't even super valuable at the moment because teams don't use it on streams, which also becomes another part of the conversation. Do you force through Baka's mod an overlay to decals so at least the decals are being displayed, which drives revenue? People, fans who watch the game see their favorite players using Alpha Boost and so on and so forth, which is why the price is driven up. The same thing would happen with decals that are used. If this decal looks super cool and my favorite pro's using it, then maybe I will too. And they can do the same thing that they do with the skin during majors, where the London Major or the World Championship progressive skin for the ball is only shown for us watching and not for the people locally. They can do that. It is possible. But then do you lose the one personality that we see on field? Do we lose the iconic, oh, that's the Mark by 8 car. Oh, hey, that's the Devo car. Oh, hey, that's the, you know, Rise decal. That's the Tau decal. That's the thing that shows individualism, to which I say, to me, the bigger problem is that Epic and Psyonix don't do a better job with production, and this is going to be on blast now, of showcasing the personalities, of cluing us into who these people are, making them household names, which all becomes cyclical. It goes back to the stuff I was talking about up here. Orgs need to make these household names. They need to run content. They need to find ways to prop these players up and make them the superstars that we get in League of Legends and everything else. And then Epic needs to make it justifiable for players, orgs, etc. to take time and effort and money to dedicate to that stuff. It goes both ways. Again, nobody here is perfect. Nobody here in Rocket League is perfect from the Epic side. Nobody's here from the organization side. There are some that are doing it better than others, but the reality is both need to work together. And that's where we're going to end this on. At the end of the day, my cause for concerns are, is Psyonix finally going to get out of their own way? I've been doing this for 10 years, guys. I've been covering this game for a really, really long time. I have worked directly with Epic and Psyonix when I was casting the RLCS. I have consulted for these organizations. I am currently actively working with Epic on other projects. The difficulty is, can they stop being so restrictive, open up the conversation, be consistent with communication, and work together to build something that's sustainable for our silly little car soccer game that we all know has the capability to be the biggest esport in the world? And I believe that wholeheartedly. I think Rocket League has so much potential as a game that is non-violent, that's easy to understand. Ball goes in net. If my 6-year-old nephew and my 85-year-old grandma can understand it, and both are willing to go and experience it in person, why not everybody else? There are so many things that need to be done, and there's so many types of things that can be updated. Like that 2/3 rule for rosters has been so outdated. Like, I don't think franchising is the right answer, but I do think some semblance of a hierarchy, now that the competition is there, as long as we can continue to provide the open model and ways to at least provide like a leapfrog of, you have seriously proven yourself in this league, you're going to get advantages. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It will benefit the organizations. We can still do open qualifier situations for chances. Last chance qualifiers are great, but like driving revenue and stuff like that, at the end of the day, this is a business. They need to find a way to turn it into that. And for Epic, they have no reason not to, because 100% the only thing keeping Rocket League alive, in my opinion, is the esport. It is the only marketing tool that has been successful, because every single Rocket Pass that comes out gets met with negativity. I don't know, man. I wish I had the answers. I would love to sit down with their team. I would love to be part of their team and help find answers with them. I would love for that to literally be my job. I would love to do everything I can to make Rocket League what I agree is the greatest esport, the most entertaining esport. But again, we'll have to wait and see. Either way, I hope these org owners keep holding people accountable. I hope they keep using their platforms to educate and talk and speak loudly to hold Epic accountable. And I just hope that Epic is willing to listen. Either way, long rant here from me. I'm very interested to hear your guys' thoughts. If you have made it this far, it is greatly appreciated. If you enjoy this type of content, as always, like, subscribe down below, turn on notifications. But most importantly, I would love to see what you guys are having to say and your opinion pieces on this, especially from this organization. So with that said, that's going to do it for me today. If you guys enjoy the content, as always, like, subscribe, notifications, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.